All right, it is Friday, May 21st, I believe. And this week was incredibly difficult. Probably one of the more difficult ones I've had since this latest diagnosis. To recap, I was diagnosed in February with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, which is breast cancer that starts as breast cancer, which I had in 2019, 2020, was no evidence of disease for 3.5 years, and now it's come back. And it has traveled into my axial skeleton, so it's in my bones, and that makes it stage 4, treatable for now, not curable, and metastatic breast cancer is the official name, which I will have to do a video all about that at some point. Here's Chloe. She's wondering who I'm talking to. Hi, baby. So this week, so I had a couple of really good weeks. We finally got my meds dialed in, and okay, dropped my dog. Well, she rolled. She's round, so she rolls. Sorry, Chloe. And I had a couple of really good weeks. I was very clear-headed. I was moving around okay. I really felt good about where my treatment was heading. And I still do, for the record. I still do feel good about where it's heading. I had a really difficult week. I didn't have appointments for like 2 weeks, and it was great. And I think that's probably why I had such great weeks. I'm just now, as I'm saying this, I'm just realizing this correlation. But then Tuesday, I had my first bisphosphonate injection. The drug is called Zometa, and it is to strengthen bones, specifically bones that are at risk for breaks. So like in osteoporosis, I already had osteopenia, and now that my bones are compromised, the theory is this is kind of the risks, or the benefits outweigh the risks. And one of the risks, which is my biggest concern, is osteonecrosis of the jaw, so specifically of the mandible, which I've had multiple root canals, multiple crowns, everything failed. Just, I had all of that very long ago. And then during chemo in 2020, Chloe is trying to get to my snack here. In 2020, my crown failed when I was in chemo. And so I had it pulled under the advice of an endodontist or oral surgeon. Or endodontist recommended it, oral surgeon took it out. And so I went without a tooth for a really long time because I was just too sick to handle a dental implant, which is what I would eventually need. So then it was years and years and years, or a couple years back and forth with Buckley Dental, my military dental, because I was on and off orders all the time. They didn't want to start the dental implant process because it's like a really long process, but that's what I needed. And so yeah, it's just the strife of a guardsman. I'll have to talk about that at some point too, about the different statuses and how it affects, the way that we who've made it a career, the way it like really affects our healthcare. Anyways, so Then I had the dental implant, and it took about, I want to say, like just about a year to get it like healthy enough for a crown. And then I got the actual crown put on the implant post, and it's great. It's been fantastic. I had excellent care. I was very, very happy. Um, and it's done great since. Well, I'm always very sensitive about this tooth, or very anxious about something happening, because the pain that I had during chemo the first time in 2020 when this tooth failed, um, the pain was indescribable. I mean, for anyone who's had a toothache, you know what it's like. Um, and then eventually, because I had no immune system at the time, I was in the thick of chemo. It was like I want to say, I know it's during like the height of COVID also. So they kept encouraging me not to go to the emergency room because they couldn't do anything for dental pain. You know, they'd drug me up and then they'd send me home because they really didn't want to admit people. And so finally, after like the third or fourth visit in like 2 or 3 days, I can't remember specifically, finally I convinced a doctor to admit me because I wouldn't be able to control the pain at home. I was on, I mean, I don't remember the exact dosage, but like I was on pretty heavy narcotic pain meds, and they weren't even lasting the 2 hours that they were telling me to take them, or that they were telling me to put in between taking them. And then they also gave me, what really scared me is they gave me a box of Narcan, or a tube of Narcan to go home with, because I just, looking back, like I realize how wild that is now, because nobody even said anything to me about it. They just, and I mean, that's where healthcare was at that point, right? It was just chaotic for them. And, you know, cancer is such a known beast, and yet COVID just completely blew it out of the water in terms of care and fear and access to care and priority. So it was really scary when they gave me Narcan, and I was in so much pain and just so miserable that like I almost like hallucinating. I won't say hallucinating because I'll get to that. Zometa, I was hallucinating for sure. But I was in so much pain. The long and the short of it is that I was in so much pain that I wasn't suicidal, but I could understand how people with chronic pain could want to die, or would want to die, because death would bring relief. And it seems like that, like I was to the point where it felt like that was the only thing that was going to give me relief if they weren't going to admit me. And so, you know, I don't know if I actually said that, or if the third ER doc was just finally like, okay, let's just admit her. But, and it was very angsty. I mean, the ER was already like just a crazy place during the height of COVID. This was March or April of 2020. So right in the thick of it. And one of the nurses said, she's like, you've got to stop coming here. If you catch this, you're going to die. And I'm just like, what the hell, lady? Like COVID has trumped cancer for you guys, but cancer to me is my most important situation. And not even the cancer at that point, it was the pain. Like my pain was to a degree, again, that like I could understand how people would want to die if they had to live with this kind of pain. And I was there, and for fuck's sake, they sent me home with Narcan. Like, they knew I wasn't going to be able to, oxy every 2 hours, 5, 10, 15 milligrams of oxy every 2 hours was not going to be enough. And they knew I was going to overuse it. And I knew I was going to have to overuse it. And I was terrified of that because I remain very wary of narcotic painkillers for many, many reasons. One of which is addiction, one of which is accidental overdose, one of which is just the crippling constipation that they cause, and the fact that you have zero quality of life on them. So, or I do, at least. I don't respond well to narcotic pain meds. So anyways, all that to say, it was a battle with this tooth. And bisphosphonates, again, one of the primary side effects, and I don't know the percentages, I forget. They say it's pretty low, but anecdotally, I feel like I hear about it a lot. And maybe it's just because those people are the ones talking about it and the other people are not out there being like, I did great on Zometa. And hopefully I am one of those people that, does do great on Zometa. But if the first infusion is any indicator, I I don't know that next month I will be able to do it. I'm coming out of it now, but you can tell I'm still not completely well. And I've been really wanting to record something to cover this because it was such a kind of blow to the great 2 weeks that I had. And so Tuesday I went in first thing at like 6:30 in the morning. God bless my parents for like picking me up so early on these days. And it was an all day thing. So we were like ready to hunker down. So we get there at like 6:30, 6:45 or whatever. I have labs drawn, which is a lot. I think they draw like 16 to 20 different labs every time. So I had labs, and then I have an office visit with my nurse practitioner. We talk through everything. She's fantastic. Then I went back to where the lab is on a different floor, Roxy. And so it's a lot of traversing and shoots, but it's a beautiful campus, so there's that. And they take great care of me, so that's a plus. And so we went back to the cancer center, the infusion center specifically, and they put me in like the research room, and they observe my dose. And actually no, because I needed Lupron too. So they put me in my own room for a minute to give me a Lupron shot in the butt, which it's funny because they're like so sensitive about doing it in the glute. And I'm like, they do it in like the glute med, I think. Glute med or glute min. And so it's not like, you're not going to see my ass. But, whatever, Americans, we got to be so, we're so weird about that. Anyways, so they give me my Lupron shot, which hurts, but, not the worst thing I'm going to go through. Oh, and then I had an IV all day. So, like, I'm kind of bruised. I don't know if you can see it, but I don't usually bruise, but this one had, like, a long catheter in it, or not catheter, but, like, I don't know what it's called. And it was, like, they had to pinch it because it was, like, I don't know if it was clotting or whatever. It was clogged, and so they weren't getting a lot of return, and it was a whole thing. So they observed my dosage, or they put me in the room, they gave me Lupron, they start me on Zometa, and while I was taking Zometa, I dosed my cancer drugs, so my study drug and my ribociclib, and Then they put me back in the study room, and I just crashed. The infusion took maybe like 30 minutes. I don't really recall. But I pretty quickly started to feel like shit. I was just exhausted and nauseous, and I was also hungry. And so my parents brought me a salad. And so that helped a little bit for like about 30 minutes. And then it just went downhill from there. And then they had to observe me the whole day and for the study. And and then it was blood draws. It was blood draw every 30 minutes for an hour, which I had an IV, so they just poke around and it's fine. But blood draw every 30 minutes for an hour, so two blood draws, and then every hour for 2 hours, and then 2 hours after that. And then there was like one more that was optional, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna opt out. So did all that. My parents got me home I couldn't even hold a conversation at that point. I just was really starting to feel like shit. And sometimes that's hard for me to verbalize it. I just kind of I noticed that when they were giving me the Zometa that I was dissociating. And I think I did that, I'm realizing now I did that a lot in chemo the first time. I put on that brave face and just, I don't know. It's so crazy. But I don't do that anymore. When I'm not feeling well, I'm not feeling well. And I don't even try to smile at strangers. I don't have it in me anymore. And so they got me home, and I went immediately up to bed, drank some water, and I can't even describe how can I describe the pain? It was the worst flu-like symptoms I've ever experienced. And I was freezing. I had my heated blanket on, the highest setting, which Roxy loved. And I was convulsing, and I'm sure I had a fever. I didn't even think to take my temperature. I was so, and then I started hallucinating. And so I got scared. I started seeing things in corners and shadows, and I already have these flashing lights in my peripheral from one of the study drugs, or from the study drug, is a known side effect. And so between that and seeing shadows, I freaked the hell out. So I called Mike, and God bless him. He came over and helped me out with the dogs and made sure I was getting enough to drink and trying to eat. And I was up probably every hour while he was sleeping. I was up every hour trying to figure out if I was gonna have diarrhea or if I was gonna be puking. I think I did both. I barely even remember. I just remember being so cold and there was no relief possible, or there was no relief in sight. And so that was scary. And that was all night on Tuesday, all day on Wednesday. Thursday, I think the chills kind of started to break, but I was foggy, and I felt like I had just come what I would equate to coming out of a coma or something, just completely disoriented and foggy. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, I was out. Thursday, I started to feel a little bit better. today I'm finally like out of bed and I can kind of move around. I took the girls out for a walk, but now my hip is hurting, and I don't know if that's a side effect of this med that means it's working, or I don't know what's going on. So got to talk to ortho about that as well. And then, yeah, so here we are today, and I feel like I missed a week of my life. And it was only like 3 days or whatever, but I still feel like I like missed a lot of time. And that's kind of what it's like to have something like this. Is on your good days, they are so good. On your average days, they are so good. And then on your worst days or on your bad days, everyone is the worst. And I talked early on about the first worst, is what I called it. And for me, the first worst was my port placement. And the things I've been through since then are just, I shouldn't compare them, but it's pretty interesting how quickly new worsts come up. So yeah, so that was this week. These Zometa infusions are supposed to be every month, with every month for 2 years, and then every 3 months for the rest of my life, allegedly. I do not know that I will be able to tolerate that. They also told me that the first one is the worst one. Again, the first worst. I don't know. It's not that I disbelieve them. It's that I believe me, and I know me. I know myself better than anyone. And so I know I'm going to have to do a little advocacy and just explain to them. I don't know that if I'll try the second one, and if it's as bad, I don't think I'll do it again. I really don't. And hope that 2 injections at this point, or 2 infusions at this point, would be sufficient, unless there's something else, which I think there is something else. My MP told me there's not, but I've heard of other things. So I don't know if it's like an insurance thing or preference or whatever, but it's a question that I will be asking. So that's one thing you'll definitely learn, is advocacy. What do you smell? Do you get a whiff of Chloe? She's right here. So that was my week. I don't have an appointment until May 30th, which is my next study or status scans, essentially, so that we will hopefully know if, or we will know if my disease is responding to treatment. I have a really good feeling about it, just based on how well I was feeling before this week. But we shall see. So I'm excited to share that when that comes up. And yeah, I'm glad that I'm starting to feel better. And it's such a weird, like, when you start to feel better, and when I start to feel better, I'm very cautious about sharing it. Like, I'm cautious to say, I feel really good today. And that is something I think I'm gonna have to get over and just embrace it, because not allowing myself to feel that joy, or to like forcing myself to kind of temper it, is not fully embracing it and not giving it the credit that it deserves, the credit that day deserves, or that version of me deserves. So yeah, so I'm gonna, I think because it's we're bracing ourselves for a fall, right? When we're protecting ourselves, and it's that like avoidant tendency that those of us with past trauma, which we all have past trauma in some way, you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you don't want to jinx it, and you don't want to say, oh, I feel great today because the universe is going to knock you down. Well, I don't believe that the universe is going to knock you down, but I do believe that just because you're having a good day, but I do believe that if you speak it, it can be true in that regard. Not everything you say can be true. um, so, yeah, this week sucked for sure. I'm glad I'm starting to feel better. We were supposed to go to a concert tomorrow, and I'm gonna go back on crutches because I'm too worried about this hip. So we'll see how I feel tomorrow, if I can go. We've had to miss out on a few things already, which is a bummer because it's a waste of money if you can't sell the ticket, and it's just really, really hard. And like, venues are so impersonal. They don't care why you had to cancel. They don't care why you can't resell the ticket. Like, they're just gonna make their money. So that's a whole nother can of worms that I almost said ball of worms that that I can talk about, is like how insanely sensitive to capitalism I've become since learning that I will be on a fixed income and I'm priced out of my own city in terms of buying another house that will accommodate my needs of single story, backyard for the dogs, garage, all the things that I have where I'm at, with the exception of the yard and the stairs. It's crazy. There's so much to uncover here. And I'm really excited to focus on working all that out. So it's going to take some time. That was a statement more for me than for you. But I'm excited. Cautiously excited.